Okay, so here we are, week 3 of 7, and we're almost at the halfway point. Venus meets the Sun on the 26th at 3 degrees of Scorpio, and that's called the Venus star point of this cycle. Now, I'm not going to go into huge explanations about the whole Venus star point thing. I'm going to go into a brief explanation because it's a huge, huge subject. I did give you the PDF from Ariel Gutman's site. She's the expert on the Venus star point, okay? And you can search it by just searching Venus star point in the group. You'll find the PDF, and you find the point before your date of birth. So my Venus star point is 8 Virgo, and I looked at the date before my date of birth, December the 14th, 59, to find that. And it will also tell you if you're a morning or evening star. So that's kind of important too. Morning stars are generally more the warrior Venus, and evening star is more like the Venus has always been portrayed in astrology during the patriarchy as all sweetness and light and very receptive. So both Venus star points are very important. But you are one or the other. You know, if you've got a prominent Venus in your chart, and you've never related to all those words about Venus, you're probably a morning star. I was always like, oh, it's all sickly and sappy. And it isn't, of course, because it's got a very beautiful side to it. But this was kind of my pre-awoke phase, if you like, or before my consciousness around Venus got raised up. And I'm definitely the warrior Venus, so you can see all that in me for sure. So where are we going to start today? I've got quite a few things open that I want to share, but I actually, no, I'm not going to share my screen yet, because in case anybody missed it, I actually want to read Yasmin's post about what she's been downloading, because not all of it, but a little bit of it, because I talked about the Inanna myth last blimey, she says. But it was brilliant, Yasmin, brilliant download. And the Inanna myth, you know, of Inanna going down the 7 gates. And I read the whole thing about her being going to see Ereshkigal and being hung on a meat hook in Ereshkigal, having birthing pains, all that kind of stuff. So for Yasmin, what information she got about this was it felt like her 7 allurements of femininity, the things that are being removed at the gates, were those given to her by the patriarchy, and therefore are limited in spite of her being Queen of Heaven. No wonder Ereshkigal and co removed them and cut her down. Ereshkigal's labour pains with her giving birth to her integrated self with Inanna's light. As Inanna heads back up, she is truly whole and contains Ereshkigal's darkness within her, so she can shine as Queen of Heaven and deep earth. Now, that is just... Now, Yasmin, I hope you don't mind. I might kind of integrate that. Isn't it amazing? You know, I kind of figured not everybody read it. So this was a post that Yasmin shared yesterday from the first one. That is kind of a real amazing summation of the journey we're doing. And we are going to be doing shamanic soul retrieval and dismemberment as parts of this. Yeah, isn't it amazing? But if you just think of those words as we're going down on this journey to integrate. Oh, bless you, she says. Yasmin, Stop being so modest, so British. It was kind of brilliant. It just kind of sums it up, really. You know, we are coming to be fully integrated. We're coming to shine the light on the shadow. Now, I will be in Kauai on the Venus star point on the 26th, but I'm going to try and find time to just get my phone and do a little live stream on the beach for you all. Because if we look at it next week at 3 degrees of Scorpio, it's when the sun is really shining into that darkness of this shadow that we're trying to integrate within us. Most of you, I think, are very awake. You've all done some kind of shadow work, but it's a constant journey, to my mind, that we can keep doing the shadow work. It's never done. Every Venus retrograde has a different flavor. If you got time to watch Ariel Gutman's video, and I've mentioned it before, it's every 8-year cycle, but then it leads, each one leads into the other one. So actually, let me get to share a couple of images, and then I'm actually going to show you my chart just as out of interest. Then I'm going to read you some things, then we're going to do a journey. So I actually, I tried to download the picture and it just wouldn't do it. So you're just getting my screen here. Okay, so look, the Vitruvian Man. Okay, Leonardo da Vinci. This is Venus. Okay, we are at the kind of at this point, the current star point is going to be the head. And then we have the other 5 points, the other 4 points of the 5-pointed star. Okay, are the arms and the legs. Venus is our higher incarnation. But how I view this is that we are Venus and Venus is us. In fact, we are all the planets. We are all connected. It's you know, quantum mechanics, if you like, quantum physics. Is like we have every element within us, and every element of us is contained in everybody else. This is why we are truly connected to the whole universe and the whole planet, everybody on it. You know, it's everything is reflected in nature, and you can see Venus in everything. In some fruits, you cut them. And I think in the apple, you get the 5-pointed star if you cut it a certain way. In the other way, it's actually kind of a female vulva. So it kind of shows that the divine feminine is part of the creative nature of the universe. And of course, it's in everybody. I just want to share another picture. So this is actually a, oh gosh, we've got lots of people here now, awesome. You can see the 5, this is actually almost like the spirograph of the Venus cycle. If you map it kind of as it moves, because it kind of moves backwards a bit through the zodiac every 8 years by a couple of degrees, we have the head, the 2 arms, and the feet. This is the flower of Venus. Okay. I kind of assume everybody knows these things. They don't. So I forget to share all these basics at the beginning sometimes of the class. Because for those of you who haven't figured out, I kind of work on what I get every week to share. I kind of have a plan. I have things I want to share, but I mix it around compared to what's kind of happening in the in you and how it feels in the universe. So you can think of yourself as Venus and remember that when you're going down into the journey we're going to do in a short while. So I'm going to share my chart because I shared all your charts, and I'm actually going to ask, and I'm going to put a post in the group as well, if anybody doesn't want their chart shared in the group. And I'm going to upload all your charts into the group in case you don't know where to create them, so that you can look at your chart yourself, look where Scorpio is, go back to call 1 and see where I said that the retrograde is happening for you. And then, you can integrate as we go through the degrees. Because if you remember, Venus started her retrograde. This is my chart in the middle, and this is where the planets are now, okay? Venus started her retrograde at 10 degrees and 50 minutes of Scorpio. And it's taken her this long to get back to 7, to move 3 degrees. But she's moving fast now. So if you imagine when a planet goes retrograde from our perspective, because of course a planet is not going backwards, this is just how we see it from Earth. I'm not very good at the astronomical explanation. I kind of know it, but I am not an astronomer. But from our perspective, she moves backwards in relation to where we are. And when she's slowing down to move retrograde, and this is true of any retrograde planet, okay? Mercury, all the planets go retrograde. The sun and moon don't. So the planets are the main bodies other than the sun and moon. It goes really slow around the turning points and then builds up speed in the middle of the retrograde. And then it gets to that turning point, goes and starts to slow again before it turns direct. So Venus is moving pretty fast now. And I say this for you because you may be feeling this more intensely than at the beginning. Everybody kind of says all the stations are more intense, and they are in some ways. But then as the speed builds up and we start to reach the middle of a retrograde, from my perspective, the transformation being asked of us in the retrograde starts to feel like it's going at breakneck speed. And that's how it feels to me. And it's not just for this retrograde, even though I'm going to show you how this one's affecting me. Now, those of you that didn't see my post on my personal page yesterday, I just flooded all day. I cried and cried and cried and cried. I cried at happy memes. I cried at sad memes. I cried at, I cried with my cat. I cried and cried and cried. And I wasn't depressed. I wasn't sad. It was just the floods of Scorpio were just coming out, and they could turn on at any point during this call. I have to tell you. So, I find it interesting when I share these things because everybody always wants to fix you and go, are you feeling better? Well, I didn't feel terrible. I felt like just crying, and it was okay. I sat in the salt bath and just let the tears flow. My husband and I watched a little bit of television last night, and it was nothing to do with what was in the television, but my eyes were just like streaming. And it's healthy to allow this. So when people are allowing this, don't try and fix them. Don't try and ask if they can be better, if they feel better, because they don't always feel bad. There's nothing wrong with having a good cry. It was the most tremendous release. And I'm going to show you, this is my Venus over here. Okay. My Venus is at, yeah, it is. Well, I think it just makes people uncomfortable because we're so not in touch. So I didn't feel shamed. I just felt like their discomfort that I was going, I'm crying all day. And, and it makes people uncomfortable because we're not comfortable with it. So I think that's why I share it, to go, hey, it's okay. Just let yourself cry if you feel like it. There's different kinds of crying, of course. This was just like release crying, and obviously there's kind of crying in pain and things sometimes. This was not. Okay. So Venus, but even crying in pain, people don't always want to be fixed. Sometimes they need that release. Okay. But anyway, I'll get off that little soapbox. So my Venus here, 7 degrees and 38 minutes of Scorpio. This is the transits yesterday at this same time about, and I was having what's called my Venus return. So I am so lucky this year. I get the Venus return 3 times. She went over my Venus once. She went back. She's going back over, and after the retrograde, she'll go over again. So Venus was sitting right on my Venus yesterday. And as you can see, I have this conglomeration. I have Neptune less than a minute away from my Venus. On the other side of my Venus, my midheaven is at 6 degrees and 6 minutes of Scorpio. So I have Venus contacting all this area of my chart in Scorpio. And I have Pluto over here in the 8th house that's ruled by Scorpio, also at 6 minutes, almost exactly sextile my midheaven. And therefore, Venus is affecting my Pluto that rules that Scorpio as well. And over here, I also have my Saturn coming up to my second Saturn return. Saturn is heading that way to have its third pass of that on November the 26th. So I was just being hit big time. And so how did it feel? And this is, I don't talk about me this much, but I want to give you an example so you can perhaps look at your chart once we post it in the group. Please ask questions. Don't ask for a whole reading. This course is meant to be about feeling your way into the retrograde. But, if you ask basic questions, I will kind of give you a bit of answers. You can always investigate a little bit online about what it means. I've told you a bit about Venus and Scorpio. So start to integrate all those energies. But how this felt for me was, this is at the top of my chart, my midheaven. The midheaven is your contribution, your mission in life. It's also to a degree your career, but it's more your kind of public mission. If you're lucky, the two of them intertwine. Thankfully for me, I've kind of reached that stage where they do. At almost age 60. It took me a long time. So if yours doesn't, don't worry. And my Saturn in my first house has been this year about owning myself as this writer, that I wanted to write this book. I'd always wanted to write a book. I've gone through an extended Saturn period going over all these planets over the last couple of years, really 2-3 years. And I actually had a reading with the famous Stephen Forrest astrologer for almost 4 years ago now, and he was like, this is a time where if you write your book, if that's what you always wanted to do. And funnily enough, that's what I did. But of course, he knew my chart. And I've done it just before it moves on. And then Pluto is all about working with my shamanic work. So more and more, I'm learning to integrate the shamanic work into things like this. So I think this Venus star point happening right at the top of my chart is kind of this culmination. This I'm kind of getting in right relationship with all that I am and all that I've ever wanted to be. And I'll get the tears coming up now. So this is how these, it's going deep within. I'm kind of being asked to look at my shadow, and really, luckily for me, I've been doing this work a lot longer, clearly. So if you're not there, don't worry. I'm kind of reaching this point where I realize that I have been facing up to my shadow. I am willing to look at it, and I'm aware of it, and I'm integrating it. It's a process. It's not one that you're ever done with. So I think my floods of tears yesterday were just about almost relief that I have reached this point in my life. So that's how it's been showing up for me. Now I'm kind of going to put you on the spot. Well, I bet nobody will do it, but I would love it if anybody would be willing to just speak about how they're feeling so far in this journey. Remember, we've only been through 2 gates. We've done the crown and the third eye. We've kind of moved down between that. Now we're going to move to your throat chakra today. So if you don't feel ready to share yet, maybe you need that released. But is anybody willing to share where they're at? Laurie, cool. Are you happy to be unmuted? Cool, let me unmute you. And if you want to come on video, that's up to you too. I'll let you do that yourself.
Sure, I'm happy to go on video. Hang on a sec. I'm in my back deck trying to get some sun.
Cool.
Well, I do Zoom all the time, but I can't even figure out where my video camera is. Okay, well, I guess I'm not on video. But
no, it doesn't matter.
My voice will work. First of all, I appreciate your sharing, Louise. I actually had tears when you just about teared up. I can feel the intensity for you, and it's been intense this week. The first week for me, the journey was, first week we did this together. It was way more inspiring. It was more creative. It was more mystical. And it's going through my 9th house in the beginning of the retrograde. And so I actually was like, this is fun. Now this week, I guess after it crossed over Mars or Mercury, it was Mercury. The Mercury day was intense for me. And this retrograde is actually in opposition to my natal 0-degree Taurus / conjunct Uranus in the heavens. So it really activated, I'm in my 2nd house. It really just activated a bunch of feelings this week. So I've been very emotional. And I can only say it's emotional, not so much that I'm crying, as that I'm feeling nostalgic for my own life. You know?
That's interesting.
It's kind of, yes, yeah, just thinking about it makes me cry. It's a kind of like as if I'm a 90-year-old woman looking back on it all. And I'm 56, right? And it's kind of like a bittersweetness, like a review or something. Yeah, I didn't expect that.
No, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would you say about the review? Has it been?
I think that it's been interesting. It's not like regret and remorse because I don't live in that zone anymore of the coulda, shoulda. It's more like gravity of, some of the choices I've made and looking at them squarely, and then now looking forward, with a new kind of freedom. But it comes at a cost. The cost is some of the incredibly intense and wild journeys that I've been on in this life. Some by choice, and some I've been thrust like Persephone into the underworld. Yeah.
Well, hopefully, you'll kind of be able to continue to reflect on that, on the life, and kind of take the lessons that are coming up from that reflection to move forward. So
yeah, I think so, and I actually find that the timing of our journey together and meeting you is exquisite. So I feel like my Venus has been my most unactualized planet in my chart, sort of hiding out by herself down there.
Well, unbelievably, because even though mine's at the top of the chart and so prominent, I feel that I've unactualized mine, and I think it goes back to a lot of this. The descriptors used for Venus, a lot of the time I just didn't really relate to. So.
I totally agree. And the way synchronicity works, just before this time with you, maybe a month and a half ago, I read an amazing book called Freya.
Oh, you gone.
Adult fiction, but it was a retelling of the Freya, goddess of love, but war.
So could you write the name of it in the chat, because you kind of went, we lost you for a second.
There. The book is called Freya.
Oh, it's just called Freya. Okay. Which of course is another name for Venus. So yes. Friday is Venus Day and Freya's Day. So
exactly. So it's perfect timing. And then I'm also just want to say sideways, I've been doing synastry on you and me in my mind in the last 5 minutes, and you're part of my destiny play right now. So thank you so much for being you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here. Oh, tears again. Oh, no. Okay, would anybody, I'm going to mute you again.
Thank you, Louise.
Thank you. Anybody else want to share? No obligation, but I think it does just help everybody else a little bit on their journey. If you do have anything to share, clearly, if you're in a place that you can share, and if you don't feel able to speak, then please share in the group, because everybody does benefit from everybody else's journey, which is why we do it as a group. Okay. Okay. All righty. Okay, let me just regroup where I was for a minute. Okay. So, I could talk forever about Venus, but I really feel like it's and I did want to read a couple of things to you first. Okay. Oh, Joni, please share. Yeah. No, I'm going to unmute you. Okay. Hi.
Hi. Thank you. I'm feeling a bit differently today than I did last week, and I want to begin just by offering gratitude to you, Louise, and to the group. Thank you for holding space for me, and having this platform where we can all get together. It is helpful for me. So thank you all for sharing your experiences and your stories, rather in these groups or on the Facebook page. This week has been more settling has been happening, like physical settling in the home, starting to develop routines. So I'm feeling a bit more grounded. I'm also seeing where I have been, my patterns in holding back from intimacy with others. I'm seeing them so clearly right now. And again, I think it was week 1, where you asked again, like, where do we tend to make ourselves right versus making ourselves close? And I wonder too, if I make myself right or make myself wrong, or either one of those, rather than make myself close.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think we all tend to do that in this modern world. There's few of us are really good at true intimacy.
Right.
Yeah. Even in long-term relationships often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have the opportunity, even actually after this meeting, I have the opportunity to speak with my mother, and where I'm setting a container, safe space for us, so to watch, the habitual patterns for both of us. But I get to test my practices on if I can actually, how willing am I to actually show up in true intimacy in a family setting. So I'm excited, and I just wanted to share that.
And I hold space for you that I would release any expectations of how that will go.
Yeah.
The other person's not always ready for the true intimacy, but I hold space that that you are able to kind of hold that container for yourself. So
yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Or I'll move on. What's okay? You want to share? Yeah. Here you go, Yasmin. You're unmuted. Oh, is your speaker on? Because I've unmuted you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
So much has been happening. Confrontations, illness, low energy, wonderful things, appreciation. I got a tax refund today. I know, perfect in Venus retro as well.
Yeah, we actually got a surprise refund as well.
But I think the main thing for me is I'm so angry. And it's not just with the little things in my life. This, I've been sharing a little bit about Navratri, the 9 nights of the Divine Mother, Durga. And because that's all about a feminine that is made up of every possible characteristic, it's such a contrast to Venus. And in a way, I wondered, and I'm just thinking out aloud now, is our journey with Venus also about restoring her so that she isn't this sappy, stereotypical, beautiful, lovely Venus that Eris really wants to trip up? But,
I absolutely think it is.
This patriarchal rubbishing of the femininity, I call it fracturing the feminine. That,
although there is that side of her still, she still has that sweet side.
But yeah, she is. But
yeah,
I think the thing that's becoming clear to me, and I think it's very common for a lot of women, and I know it's been my personal journey and arrival point where I am right now, is that we're not one-dimensional. Venus isn't. And I think really the integrated feminine, this is what's becoming clear for me personally, is just made up. We're just made up of different parts.
Yeah.
We're fierce, we're maternal, we're sexual and erotic, we're warriors, we're the tenderest. And so Durga is really stepping out very loudly for me to kind of show me, because she is also Venus. She is everything.
She is. Thank you so much for introducing that to me.
And so I feel sort of Venus has had a bit of a patriarchal makeover, and perhaps this journey is to restore her to a bit more integration with the other characteristics that are supposedly feminine.
Yeah.
Instead of the patriarchal allurements. I just got cross when that came to me.
And I think it is. I think at a macro level for us on this journey in this group, it's to restore that within us personally. But I think every journey she has, every 18, 19 months, is to really move us towards that. So would you, Laurie, before we move on, would you put a link to that book in the group so people could look at it? Thank you. And Yasmin, do you have any site that you prefer to read about Navratri? Because if you could post that in the group, because I think I've actually going to make it a little research project of my own to see if Navratri often occurs with Venus retrograde, because I don't think it's at the same time of year every time, is it?
Yes, it is. It's usually October, November. There are two. There's one in the spring and then there's one in autumn.
Oh, that's why I got confused, because there's one in spring as well. Okay.
Yeah. So they're both visitations by Durga and her different aspects.
Yeah. So if you have any information that people could read more about that, or you
book actually by an American lady. Her name's Laura Amazzoni, and it's called Durga and the Sacred Feminine, and she's really a scholar about Durga, sacred feminine.
Cool. Well, if you could post a link to that in the group as well. So, obviously people, there's no obligation to buy all these books and read them, but if you want to explore it further, please do, because this would Navratri, to my mind, everything Yasmin introduced me to it, and everything I've read kind of online about it just felt so much like this particular journey to me. So
And each one of those 9 nights, a different aspect of Durga is celebrated.
Yeah. And I guess, maybe a little brief explanation more about Hindu belief systems would help those that don't know. I happen to study it in college, and I think a lot of people here know a lot about it, but they're not separate deities. It's all faces of the one divine. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
She's one, and she's everything.
Yeah, exactly. And all the gods, the Hindu gods, are as well part of that too. So cool. Thank you, Yasmin. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, you're welcome.
Cool. Okay, back to muting. I'm going to carry on, but if anybody else does want to share before the journey, just let me know. But amazing kind of things that are coming up. So you see, I facilitate these courses not for me just to talk at you. Things come up for different things. Do you think you could share that? Actually, I could download the chat. Just a link to it in the group as well after the call. Maybe on Amazon or something so people can look for it. Thank you. Thanks. Because I think I'd actually like to read both Freya and that one, just to add to the pile of books I have yet to read. Anyway, I pulled a card before we do any journeying, and I got the Moth today. The 29. I think we're all reaching this point at the middle of the journey where we're beginning to transform. We're beginning to see what's transforming within us and really starting to feel it. And yes, the 29 again. And let me actually share, that's a point I was going to share, where we are now with Venus. And next, while we have this retrograde journey, the 29-degree mark of the charts is going to come really important, because during this retrograde, and the moth means transformation, of course, like butterflies. Okay. And before this retrograde is over, the moon's nodes will have shifted back into Cancer and Capricorn, and so they will be at the 29th degree of cardinal signs. For those of you that don't know what cardinal signs are, they are initiating signs. We've been in a fixed pattern for the last 18 months, which means fixing things in stones. So we've got some big shifts coming. On this they move on November the 6th, so before the retrograde finishes. On the same day, Uranus moves back into Aries, so we'll move to the 29th degree of Aries. So, I'll talk more about this later, but that 29 is kind of going to be very important towards the end of the retrograde, with things moving to the 29th degree. And of course, we're in an 11 year, 29 is 11, so if you look at numbers, and I'm not a numerologist, but we all look at 11, and it's a kind of a gateway of change, and 11 is a really important number this year. And my podcast, Weirdly Magical Podcast, which is actually Laurie, I think, listens to it, and some of you listen to it. We've actually got 2 new ones we've done, because my friend Jen and I that I do it with, I'm traveling next week, then she's traveling, so we kind of recorded well ahead of time. We have one for the full moon next week and one for the new moon on November the 7th. And particularly on the November the 7th one, we talk about this shift of the nodes and things, because that's more general astrology, so I don't want to focus on that. But that 29 and the number 11 is going to be huge at the end of the retrograde. Okay, so Venus I've moved it on to a bit later today, this afternoon. Venus is going to move to 6 degrees and 59 minutes. She's currently just over 7 degrees of Scorpio. So she's moved almost 4 degrees now. Or by the end of today, it will be almost 4 degrees backwards. And, I just wanted to take the time to look where she is right now. The sun is moving towards her, and the sun is still in Libra, and they are going to meet in the middle at that 3-degree point, 3 degrees of Scorpio. But tonight, as we sleep, most of us in the West Coast at least, or in the US. In the UK, it'll be early morning or early tomorrow for you. Venus, the moon's moving into Pisces this afternoon too, and we're going to get this watery grand trine with Venus and the moon aspecting each other. And that is going to kind of bring up some very deep dreams tonight, this is why I wanted to look at where she is currently, because anytime, we're in the watery realms, the magical realms of Scorpio. The Pisces realm is the cosmic soup, the collective unconscious or subconscious, whichever you want to call it. And it's the dream time, Pisces, and the moon's over here in Pisces. And not only that, we do have Mercury aspecting Neptune too. That was earlier today, but it's still in play. So dreams tonight, pay attention. There's going to be some major stuff happening in your dreams, in all our dreams. So keep a dream, something to record them next to you. Now, because she's going to move this afternoon to that 6-degree mark, I want to read the symbols for that degree mark. I'm not reading every symbol every time she switches a degree, but these ones really kind of went, ooh. So the Chandra symbol is a small cave located high in the hills and filled with goat dung. Now, Scorpio does represent dung, shit, okay, and also caves. So, but this is high on the hills, okay? So you're moving into the higher realms at this degree. So I want you to listen to these words. Tumultuous changes, hanging on to previous identities, ego fragments, and the shrapnel of personal illusion. You are plunged into a karmic process that exposes what is real and what is not, yet harbour such intense old places inside that it takes massive overhaul to get anywhere. Forcing yourself up against a brutally harsh karmic path of exceedingly rough process. But this is what it takes when you have built up in reserve so much retrogressive stuff that you must be enveloped by it in order to uncover a way to be yourself again, without all these barnacles and burdens. Fierce shadow world, under duress, personal and collective, tremendously powerful, treacherous and rewarding, not for the faint-hearted. And that kind of what you said, Laurie, about, kind of going over your, I know, clearly. Yeah. We're kind of this is a pretty major journey we're going in, it feels like to me. Scorpio, to my mind, is always the deepest of signs, the deepest psyche, the deepest shadows, the deepest murk. The journey we did, some of you did with me, and the last Venus retrograde was from Aries to Pisces. That actually felt lighter than this one. This one feels really karmic. And so I'll post those words in the group. But I think because we're at this degree, and the reason I showed the chart for today is that I think the next kind of couple of days this weekend while the moon's in Pisces, and we're really entering that kind of underworld spiritual realm. We are really going deep into this pressured kind of well, we're almost being pushed down into the cave, okay, and down into the shit or the dung. So the Sabian symbol is deep sea divers. It does, doesn't it, Yasmin? It does feel significant that we're journeying together. The will to explore the hidden depths of all experiences and to search for primordial causes. This symbol reflects depth psychology, a coming to terms with the collective unconscious and its contents. This type of depth plumbing adventure is basically different from the one symbolized by the gold rush, for it can take place within the individual and has no relation to social value. It refers symbolically to a quest for understanding, i.e. what lies beyond, under the surface waves of daily living. It demands a strong will and good breathing, i.e. a degree of spiritual strength. And you guys would not come on this if you did not have the strength to do this, by the way. You would not have felt called to even sign up for the class. So this is depth realization at the very roots of consciousness. So we're going to do a journey. And I guess you could probably imagine what we're going to do. I'm going to have you journey into your deepest self, into your shadow, and really go in to shine a light on the dung within you, and whether that's, reflected in your outer thoughts as your life, as it was for you, Laurie, or whatever's coming up for you, it's really happening within you. So, when the drumming starts, I want you to, we're just going to do a 10-minute one, but I want you to start in your place, obviously feet on the ground, eyes closed, and then start in your starting place, the meadow, the mountain, wherever you is, and then with your guides say, I want to go within. And then kind of how I picture it, but get what you get, accept what you get, is like one of those movies where people get shrunk, and just going in, or having an endoscope go in you or something to explore, and then go right down into your lower chakras and see what shit you've got in there. And see what shit wants to be brought to light, and what wants to be faced in this kind of powerful energy that we're going into this weekend, this watery energy. Does anybody have any questions about the journey, where we're kind of going with this? I'm going to do a YouTube one, because drumming just kind of is tiring. No, I'm just going to do a 10-minute one. It should be long enough to do this. When there's a callback, come back. And I am going to see if anybody wants to share right afterwards, but I will also give you a couple of minutes to write your thoughts and things. This one should be really interesting. When I come back from Kauai, we're actually going to do a soul retrieval journey for each of us on call 4. At the last call 7, we'll be doing a dismemberment journey before we put ourselves together to come out of this. But this one, this one just kind of came to me. I've never done this one. This is entirely a journey I've made up, but it feels right. So if you could sit comfortably, I'm just turning my mic away from me towards my screen. Close your eyes and journey away. Okay. Let me get my. So, journal your thoughts. Let me move the mic back. So, I actually just want to share something really quick while you journal. You don't have to pay too much attention to this. This is something that just popped into my mind while I just had my eyes closed. I don't kind of formally journey while you're journeying in case there's any technical details, but it suddenly occurred to me to wonder one thing. In 1986, I was a nanny in Canada, and towards the end of my year, I was deciding where to go next. And I applied for a couple of jobs, and I actually got offered a job in Kauai. I turned it down because they offered me $50 a week, and they had 5 children, and they wanted me to pay my own airfare and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, I thought I'll never be able to get off the island. But Kauai has always been calling me, and I'm going there on Monday during this retrograde. And I came out of the journey a little early because I wasn't really properly journeying, and I was like, let me just have a quick look back at this period in 1986, because it would have been about now that I had to make the decision on this job in Kauai. And I'm actually going to share my screen. So I didn't do the formal chart. I might do more on this later. But I looked at the chart just for this day back in 1986. And here we have Venus retrograde. So I really feel like this week in Kauai, even though I was kind of like, oh, do I have to be traveling again while I'm doing this class and all this kind of stuff? Sorry about that. But clearly it's meant for me to be there during this journey. I think there's something there that I am going to learn and find out about myself. And this magical trip I'm going to do with my husband next week. So does anybody have anything to share about their journey or would you rather wait until and kind of process it a little bit more? Any sudden awarenesses like the one I just had? Because that was not expected. I never thought to look back to that time in 1986. Okay. No? I'll just give you a couple more minutes to... I know, isn't it? Well, powerful feminine. Yeah, it's very goddessy, of course. You know, they have all their... it was Venus retro in Scorpio. Yeah, exactly. So not only was it a Venus retro, it was a Venus retro in Scorpio like this one. So I'm going to look at it a bit more. I'll share if I get any details. You're welcome, Laurie. Is it relevant for you too? Very karmic, it feels like. And I hadn't really thought to look back that far. I know there's the 8-year thing I've already mentioned, you know, going back to where are we? Oh God, what year? Anyway, all the 8 years I've kind of mentioned. I should put those in the group again, but I hadn't gone back that far. So amazing. So think about 1986 for those of you that are old enough too, because that clearly came up. Thank you. 2010, of course, 2002, 1994. I actually met and kind of fell in love with my husband in 1994, the one before that. So yeah, just keep going back. But I was kind of a bit like, whoa. So I'll do the numbers, but there's the chart. Let me share again. Let me just share again. Okay. So here we are. It was 1986, 20 degrees of Scorpio back then. There you go. Yeah. So you can see that retrograde was nearer the end degrees of the signs. Each year or each time it retrogrades in Scorpio, it kind of moves back to the earlier degrees. And then we'll move up, we'll reach a point where we won't have Venus retrogrades in Scorpio for quite a few years. Okay. In fact, let me... I'm going to do the third gate in a minute, but I do. Okay. So I'm going to share this. This is the PDF I shared a link to in the group from Ariel Gutman's site. Somebody created it for her, apparently. So this is, you see the signs here. I didn't really know what this was before, but this is where we're going to have, so Scorpio is purple. So like in these years, we had Venus retrogrades in Scorpio. Okay, let's go to more modern times. So we've been having Venus retrogrades in Scorpio for quite a long time. and we will have until 2026. And then after 2026, there will be no Venus retrogrades in Scorpio again for quite a long time. So that's what these things mean, okay? Because it moves back through the zodiac. The 5-pointed star moves back through the zodiac, if that makes sense. So there's all your years. I'd only really mentioned 2010 and 2002 in the group, because not all of you are old enough to go back that far. But look at all those years, and even back to 78. You know, that's if that means anything to you, do. But I was actually quite blown away. And that just came to me in with the journey music playing. So if nobody wants to share anything about their journey in the call, which is fine, absolutely fine, we are going to go through the third gate. Okay. So I just want you to sit back, and you had past life stuff come up. Cool. Yeah, that's not surprising, especially in Scorpio, to be honest. That's amazing. So, Joni, you can share here or you can write it in the group. It's up to you, because that's really interesting. Nope. Okay. So I'm going to get everybody to sit back again and close their eyes. And I'd like you to all breathe out. It's okay. You maybe do it. Well, you can talk if you want before we do this, if that's easier for you, rather than typing in the group if you're still struggling. Yeah, okay, yeah, let's do that. Okay, let me unmute you. Okay, past life stuff, do tell.
That was fun. Wow. Yeah, so I had previously done some past life work with someone else, and it was powerful, and it just kind of sat. I didn't really do much with it. And then in this journey, all of a sudden it was like flooding through. And these I don't know how to speak about it. There's this blaming and shaming, and then in relationships, and I don't know how much of the storyline I should get into of what happened in the past life and how it relates. Okay.
Whatever you feel.
Okay. But I think most particularly there's this deep fear of speaking up, of using my voice, because it had, in this past life experience, had brought my death. And then it also had brought my students' death. And so there's like this deep fear of, because of that pain, emotional turmoil, it's quite scary. And the risk that it could mean, but also at the same time, knowing how to put it in perspective and how to use that as fuel to speak up.
How relevant is that or synchronous that this has come up as we go through the throat chakra gate? Yeah. So be kind to yourself, and anybody else where stuff like this has come up for. I think after today's call, we may not appear to have done, well, I haven't done a lot of kind of teaching as such. This has been more inner stuff. Drink lots of water, eat some dark chocolate, that really grounds too. And really, I hope you have some space, all of you, after you listen to this call, to go and maybe do another journey, or go and take a long salt bath, or just go and sit in nature, so that you can let this flow through you, because it does feel very intense right now. As we approach this, and that's kind of major that's coming up, you know. But of course, it's come up for you to be able to move beyond it, move through it. Would you agree? Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect kind of lead in. Are you complete?
Yes. Thank you.
That's a perfect lead into doing the third gate journey. So if you all would just put your feet on the ground and close your eyes and let your breath out 3 times with a soft ah, and let your breath come back in on its own. Ah. 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 I want you to imagine yourself where you left off last week, going deeper into the underworld and coming to the third gate, whatever way that looks for you. And imagine the gatekeeper demanding of you that to move through, you must remove the double strand of beads necklace. You've already removed the crown, which is your connection to heaven. You've removed your earrings that are your sense of magic and the ability to manifest. And here you remove the double strands of necklace. Your voice, anything that's stopping your voice, this chakra from opening. Imagine that the necklace has been holding it shut, and you remove it and it flowers open. And after the necklace is removed, the gatekeeper opens the gate and you move down. Start traveling towards that fourth gate. And when you're ready, just come back to your space. And we're going to leave it there for today. That's kind of been really powerful. Thank you for the book links, Laurie. If you could share a link to that Freya book, that would be really wonderful for if those that would like to read it. I'm going to actually just copy. I'm going to post the chat in the group as well. So you've got those dates. I'm going to do a little bit more looking into 1986 for myself. It feels like that was very relevant for today. So it could just be for me, but I doubt it. So Well, thank you all for coming. I love that so many of you were able to come live. I really appreciate it. And I'll get the recording up as soon as possible. And just take care of yourselves. Those journeys were quite deep, and some of what we're experiencing now is very intense. So have a beautiful rest of the day.